What's up, Falcons fans? Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for more Atlanta Falcons content. And we have a big game. The Falcons land on Thursday. The Falcons play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Atlanta for an early first place lead in the NFC South. And to help preview that game, I wanted to bring on Tre'Shon, working with Falcoholic. You may have seen him on the timeline. Hey, this man knows how to get trending at times. I appreciate you coming on, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. The Falcons beat the Saints last week, so always feeling good after that. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, appreciate you taking time out, man, to talk about the Falcons, man, the game tomorrow. So, obviously, as I mentioned, it's a big game. It's part of the three-game NFC South gauntlet they're playing right now. They'll actually be done playing two of the teams by November, I believe. So they're going to get through that very quickly. But they play Tampa Bay for the first time this year. Tampa Bay has beat some good teams. They look impressive. They look like a good team. So this is expected to be a very tough matchup going into this game. And obviously coming out of our game with the Saints, even though we won, the offense did not look great in that game. So my first question to you, man, is off the bat, what is the first thing that has to change offensively for the Falcons to have success against Tampa Bay on Thursday?
Yeah, first things first, it really just comes down to the basics, and I think that's just execution. I think that when you look at what's going on, you see the opportunities, you see these plays where it looks like they could turn into something, and then whether it be due to penalty or protection or what other miscue that could possibly come up, they're just not able to do it and follow through and really get those wins because they have had a lot dialed up and they're just leaving a lot of meat on the bone right now.
Yeah, and I think too, especially you went back and went through some of the film. One play a lot of people have been talking about is there was a play where Kyle Pitts, obviously been a big topic of discussion, but he was open on a deeper route. Kurt didn't throw that route. And so, people are looking at, what was that? Was it offensive line? Is it Kurt not trusting it? There's a multitude of things, right?
Yeah.
I made mention that I think Kirk is not seeing the field well still at times. I wanted to get your thoughts on that through what you've seen. Is it that, or is it just simple execution?
Yeah, I think I've seen people liken it to the old Madden Cone vision with Kirk at times this year. And I think we are seeing a little bit of that. It's obviously hard to know in too much detail how much things are, from a systematic standpoint. Is he going through his reads in the proper order, or is he coming off ones too fast maybe, and he's worried maybe about just trying to get through the progression and then get to that last guy, or maybe play it a little bit safer and things like that. So I think that Kirk isn't necessarily seeing the field great right now, but I don't think it's out of the ordinary for Kirk Cousins either. When we talk about, historically, September has always been a tough month for Cousins. He's usually not come out of the gate hot as a player, and he actually is one of the best performing QBs of all time in the month of October. So, it's officially October. It's going to be very interesting to see if things start to click more for Kirk, and we kind of see some confidence get built back up.
Yeah, and I think that would be very big for them if that can happen. Obviously, this offense overall, people felt like just have not hit that stride, right? And so, what I wanted to ask about is obviously they are down two linemen. Caleb McGarry may be back tomorrow, but they're down two down linemen. How much do you think that has played at all into that Saints game?
Yeah, there's a play in particular where Darnell Mooney is streaking across the field, running an intermediate crossing route, and it's there, it's money, and it's a touchdown. There's probably nobody that was going to catch him on that play. He maybe gets tackled at the 1 yard line, but Kirk isn't able to get there because Nuzeel gets blown up. And Kirk just doesn't get that little extra quarter of a second of protection that he needs. Overall, I thought the line did pretty well, considering, the two injuries. And that was a Saints pass rush that came into the game with the fourth most sacks in the league. They were dialing up a lot of exotic blitzes and different looks, which I also think kind of contributed to muddying up the picture for Kirk, and then also made it him a little less confident and kind of pulling the trigger because maybe he wasn't trusting what he was seeing. What he thought might have been cover 2 was actually cover 3, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and that obviously could play a part. You obviously want to try to pull the quarterback. Now, in terms of what Tampa Bay has done, obviously they won't have Antoine Winfield tomorrow. That's a big loss for them. But they've been a really good defense this year, still solid across the board. Obviously, we know what Todd Bowles can do. So when you think about that initially, is there a concern that Tampa Bay may be able to repeat what the Saints did in a way tomorrow?
Yeah, man. Todd Bowles still has his fastball. I think he's probably the most underrated defensive coach in the league. He's really not mentioned as much as he should be when people talk about the great defensive minds that are currently in the game. So his system, one of the good things about when bringing pressure and constantly bringing pressure is that you're kind of able to fill in that skill set a lot easier if you're building your pass rush off of just 4 guys only, and it's just based on them winning, and that's it. So because Todd is so good at implementing his blitzes and he does such a good job of coming up with something new for every quarterback he sees, I definitely think that even with the injuries that they're going to have to look out for this defense and be prepared to take on a lot of different looks, similar to how they had to do just last week against New Orleans.
Yeah, and I think too, last year when you look at this team, I mean, Falcons beat Tampa Bay. Maybe you can make argument should be them twice. This team obviously looks, like I said, really good team this year. So is this a game for you? Maybe, depending on what happens, because this guy's been a topic of discussion, where potentially Kyle Pitts could potentially start getting going here. I know there's been questions about how he's used, what routes to having him run, things of that nature. Could this maybe be a game, if there's opportunities there, that he could take advantage of some matchups on Tampa Bay's defense?
Well, anytime the Winfield's out, you definitely feel like the middle of the field just got a little bit easier to attack. So I think that there will be opportunities for Pitts, but I've felt that there's been opportunities in every game so far. And, there's been some discussion around this, but I truly believe that if we have executed better, kind of like how we were talking about at the beginning, then a lot more people would be happier with kind of where Kyle Pitts is at and the role that he has. We look at that Kansas City game, that defensive pass interference that doesn't get called in the end zone. Kyle wins, beats his man. There's a possibility there that with a better catch, or with a better ball, that's a touchdown. Pitts ends that day with 70 yards and a touchdown. If Kirk is able to get that ball off to Kyle that we mentioned earlier, that's probably another 60 yards and a touchdown. And then you're talking about Kyle Pitts has 3 touchdowns in 4 games, and he's got at least 60 yards in 3 games. And, the picture and the narrative is completely different. So I do think that with some of the injuries Tampa Bay is facing, that Pitts will have a few opportunities there to really make a splash play, an explosive play. It's just going to come down to executing and, Kirk getting him the ball in that scenario.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, he's faced a lot of heat. I know you saw that aggressive headline earlier. But people have their opinions. People are coming out about it, man. And I think Pitts is in a position where I think I understand the frustration with just like you want to see more, but at the same time, you also have to use context and look at, okay, is it truly he's not good? Is it truly he's not getting open, or is it execution? Is it the way he's used and everything under the sun? And so, but one person in this offense that has had success has been Darnell Mooney. Now, some people may take that either which way. Some look at that as an indictment on Drake London. Some, look at that as, hey, I mean, if he's balling, hey, that's great for us. What have you seen from Darnell this year? I mean, he has been very impressive in getting open. I've told people I thought him and Kirk had good chemistry coming out of camp, and I think we've seen that. What are your overall impressions of Darnell so far through these games?
Yeah, man. Darnell's balling because Darnell's balling. It doesn't really have anything to do with anybody else. It's not because London's not doing his part or anything like that. the man simply gets open, and you're going to feed whoever's getting open. And he is our speed threat. It's something that we didn't have on this offense, for the past couple of years. And so his skill set blends really well with London's and Pitt's, in my opinion. And I think that having him out there, you've been able to see how just the threat of London and even the threat of Pitts has really taken in some coverage and made the defense, have to respect them and their influence. And it's really opened up the field for Mooney, and he's capitalizing on his opportunities, which is great to see, because this is a guy, coming into the year where it's like, okay, he had 900 something yards not too long ago, but we haven't really seen anything since. 13 million feels like a lot of money. If things continue at this rate, it's going to feel like a steal. And so I think that Mooney's really just capitalized on this, this spot and this chance for him, and that he's really, taken it as far as he can. I kind of thought he would be, Kirk's Jordan Addison coming into this year to, the Justin Jefferson, I guess, of London, if you will. But we've really seen Kirk kind of lean into Mooney more, and he's gone to him in a lot of scenarios where you would think, oh, okay, maybe I thought that would have been something that they wanted Pitts or London, but it seems like Mooney's got it. That second deep shot on the final series of the Saints game comes to mind. A little bit of heartburn over that, but I'll say this: Mooney's open, and Cousins put it to where nobody else could make that catch. But if they catch that, that's a touchdown, and then you're walking off. You're walking off on a touchdown there. But it's been really good what we've seen from Mooney so far.
Yeah, and I'm excited to continue to see him grow within the offense and continue to get that going, because obviously this is a big year, like I said, for him to show people. It's always like I said, it's like the Muhammad Sanu signing. People questioning, oh no, then he showed out. People sign Moody, oh no, now he's showing out. So it's one of those things, man. You gotta believe a guy's ready to step up when it's time. But last question on the offense before we get to defense here. So Zach Robinson obviously has been a guy who a lot of people have had discussion about his play calling, certain plays. Obviously the Chiefs game comes to mind. About certain play calls he made there. What has been your overall assessment of Zach so far? I've made a mention that when you look back at some things, I mean, you're seeing some people open. So clearly if somebody's getting open, it's not that maybe the designs are bad. Maybe it's when he's calling particular plays. And then is there a certain, in your head, initial game plan or thing that you think he needs to do going into this Tampa game against them in that defense?
Yeah, I think you said it really good there. It's more about the when he's calling some of these plays. I think we just brought up Darnell Mooney, and I know that the plays in particular that a lot of people are getting heartburn over are those Darnell Mooney screens, and I agree. The Darnell Mooney screens, we should probably dial those back a little. But the screen game in general has actually been nice. And you've actually even seen him start to build off of it already. When we look at that Kansas City game, Bijan's gravity is so strong there on that rocket screen that Drake London just leaks out and he's wide open for a touchdown. Last week, we saw the unfortunate holding call on Jake Matthews on what was another very well-timed and executed screenplay that, was a touchdown. So I think he's still trying to figure out when to throw the fastball, when to throw the changeup, when to throw the curve, but he's getting much better at it. And to your point, we are seeing guys open that aren't getting the ball. We're seeing plays that are clearly, working, but execution is failing them. And so if we can get those things tightened up, then I think we'll see, more progress and more returns. If there's anything specifically that I think he should do, I would cool down on the amount of outside zone that the team is currently running. So the Falcons are running outside zone at a higher rate than any team right now, including Kyle Shanahan. And that's kind of a big deal because that's Kyle Shanahan's bread and butter. So I think Robinson had, this very specific idea for what he wanted to do with this run game, but I also think Dwayne Ledford is playing a huge role in that. We ran the outside zone concept a lot last year, almost to the point where it was kind of hurting the team. So seeing it carry over again does make me wonder, okay, how much influence does Ledford have on this right now? And then when we talk about having to patchwork the O-line, maybe they did want to get away from running the outside zone, but now with the twos in, that's kind of all of what the twos have been running when they are getting their reps. So it's hard to then make that adjustment. I think that he will slowly start to mix in some, even just some inside zone, some split duo, other concepts like that just kind of help the offensive line not really fall into this routine to where defenses then are sitting at the edge waiting on it. And that's what we really saw in Kansas City specifically, is that Spagnuolo was like, okay, I'm going to take away outside zone from you. And that's why Bijan had, the worst rushing game so far through these first four that night.
Yeah, and I think too, like they were talking about even during on that broadcast or that game, is that you got to have something else. And I know some people have mentioned Algier as he's had some effective runs because he's a different type of runner than Bijan, and sometimes that can be more effective. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how he kind of still handles the running back rotation and when to use certain concepts for certain guys. And just when is it just, hey, bully ball up front, let's go ahead, block, Tyler Algier, run down their throats, and we'll see how it goes. But switching to the defensive side, obviously coming into this game, Baker, we know what Baker has done. People wondered about how he would be after Canales left. He seems to be still really good. Seems to have more, even he said before in interviews, has more freedom within this offense for Tampa. We know what Mike Evans does. He always gives A.J. Terrell trouble, so that's a matchup to look at. Chris Godwin, we know what he can do. What stands out to you when you just think about the Tampa Bay offense versus the Falcon defense, and what could be the key there?
Yeah, when I think about Tampa Bay's offense, it really is all driven through Baker Mayfield. It kind of, it's going to go as far as he goes. And right now, he has had, a seamless transition to Liam Cohen, the new OC's system. And it was definitely something that I was a little questionable about coming into the year. Liam Cohen just came out of Kentucky. He was Will Levis's coordinator and play caller there. So I wasn't necessarily sure, how this transition was going to be for both of them. But, it doesn't really seem to be affecting them that much. I think when you look at Tampa's offense, it really hasn't changed much from last year in terms of personnel or anything like that. They still want to beat you in the same ways. They want to use Mike Evans on the outside. They want Chris Godwin in that similar power slot role that kind of Drake London gets reps at and everything like that as well. And so I think the Falcons are very used to this offense and kind of what the Bucs want to do. And so a lot of it just is going to come down to, winning your assignments, because the Buccaneers are down, a couple of men right now, including on the offensive line. So there is going to be opportunities just based on those matchups alone.
Yeah, and I think too, I feel like a key for me is looking at, we've talked about it, on Twitter, the pass rush for the Falcons. I believe I saw something that said the Falcons actually had a higher pressure rate in this last game. I don't know where I saw it, but I think they said they had a higher pressure rate, even though they really didn't get to Derek Carr a lot. And that could be progress. I've seen some packages where, you'll see Judon and Ebiketie on the field at the same time with another pass rusher, maybe Caden Ellis is that other guy. So they've tried some different looks to try to get after him. Can you kind of talk about that, how important that could be here? And just, is it as bad as we think it is? Is it just Falcons just not having luck actually getting to the quarterback? What have you been seeing?
Yeah, so the Falcons did have, I believe it was about 28% pressure rate against the Saints, which was an increase. They've been in the low teens. And so I do think it has been as bad as we believe and as we see. And the big issue is that they're not really able to get much going out of base. We have the 5th highest blitz percentage right now. And where they're getting most of their success is from these 5-man fronts, which were heavily discussed kind of coming into the year. that have been implemented. And that's, to your point, where you're starting to see, okay, they've got Judon, Ellis, and Ebiketie all there at once. Sometimes they've had Troy and Ellis both in the A gap, giving a mug look with Judon and Ebiketie on the edge. And then you've got Grady kind of free roaming and doing whatever he wants in those situations. They're trying to mix it up, but it's just been really a disappointment when it comes to seeing some of these guys perform out of the base defense, most notably the interior defensive line. Edge play not being great outside of Judon, not really a big surprise. The edge room was pretty thin coming in. We unfortunately lost Braylon Trice, who I think would be killing all these no rookie playing narratives, because that man would be in there right now if he could go. But yeah, David Onyemata, really good bounce back game against the Saints. Before that, he only had a single pressure on the year. Eddie Goldman has actually been giving a lot in the pass rush game, more than I had expected. But, after that first game, Grady Jarrett hasn't really made much of an impact. Kentavious Street has just been a non-factor in that regard as well. You did see Taquan Graham get an uptick of snaps, almost double last game. Saw some promising things from him on film. And it's a short week, so I didn't expect it to happen this week. But with a pseudo bye week coming up, I think we might see Rook get the opportunity to maybe come up and start getting some snaps to help this pass rush game, because it's kind of a problem right now. Luckily, that really good safety duo we have on the back end has been allowing us to get some coverage sacks, and I think you've seen the team really be able to capitalize on those. But outside of that, it really is kind of just the Matthew Judon show as it stands.
Hey, listen, I think that, you just got to be able to be optimistic sometimes, situationally, at times, be able to get pressure. I know, especially that Kansas City game, one thing they did in the second half is they started to blitz more, I think, to try to speed up Patrick Mahomes in that offense. I think it helped. And I know some people wanted Jimmy Lake to be more aggressive earlier. So it'll be interesting to kind of see if that is something they would be looking to. But I guess it depends on who you're playing,
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes kills people when they blitz him. So I was kind of prepared. Like when they started coming out in the second half, I was like, okay, that's kind of a big. I'm like, that's a big step, because a lot of people won't do that. They're scared to blitz Mahomes because he usually kills them, but they don't really have that roster anymore. And so I do agree, though, that Lake has been a bit conservative still. Even though we do send some more blitzes, it's really 5-man concepts and stuff like that. So you're not really seeing them commit a ton of extra resources. But at the same time, you can't, because the more you commit, the less you have in coverage. And then that's kind of where you get put in that bind. So it's definitely been, I think, who are the opponents? 2 run-heavy quarterbacks at the very beginning of the season, always going to skew pressure numbers. One, in both directions, because they're holding the ball longer, they're moving around more, they have a different skill set than somebody like Carr. And when we saw them against Carr, we saw that pressure rate come up. And so I do think now that we're kind of getting into the schedule where we're going to see more, I'm not going to say statues in the pocket, but just kind of more, traditional pocket passers, guys who can, maybe make 1 or 2 moves, but they're not really running away from you or anything like that. I do think that is going to help the pressure rate, and we're going to see things stabilize a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be very important too, if they can start getting that going, because obviously that'll just help this defense, especially, with the back end that we have. I mean, somebody said it. Shoot, we put the Falcons 2016 offense with this defense. Boy, we're going all the way. So it's definitely. There's some encouraging things, but obviously there's things that obviously still need much improvement. Actually, that brings up a good point I want to quickly ask you about. Do you think the defensive backs should be playing more press? I know a lot of people talk about they play off a lot. And so obviously teams can take advantage of that, especially in short yardage situations. Is that something that you feel like to it's okay to, is that just a part of maybe just being more aggressive in general?
Yeah, so last year we played man coverage more than anybody in the entire league. While that was happening, the Rams were playing zone coverage pretty much at a higher rate than just about anybody in the league. And so when Lake and Morris came over, um, the expectation was is that we're going to transition to that more zone heavy defense, and that's really what we've seen. Um, I don't necessarily think it has anything to do with how aggressive they want to be or anything like that. I think it just kind of comes down to the way that they want to defend the pass, and their goal is really what everybody's goal is right now. If looking across the league, everybody's talking about too high is killing the passing game, and yeah, people want to make you throw it 3 yards and 4 yards anymore instead of letting QBs take these 15 to 20-yard shots, because QBs have gotten too good at taking those shots. Those used to be very low percentage plays, and they've now become very efficient, high percentage plays. So they're flipping the script. They want to keep everything in front of them. I do think they need to implement a little bit more man in some situations, or it's not even about implementing man, but just switching up the zone scheme, maybe putting the corners in flat a little bit more in some scenarios instead of always having them drop back. Seeing them off ball like 10 yards in some scenarios is a little maddening, because it's like, yeah, man, somebody's going to pick on you for that. And the Falcons actually picked on the Saints for that last week with a Drake London screen. It was very similar to a look that the Packers would roll out back when Rodgers and Devontae Adams were there. They just give each other a look. Oh, okay, it's one-on-one. Yeah, I'm going to throw you the ball. Go to work. London was like a half yard short from getting the first on that one. But it's the same kind of concept where, yeah, if you give enough cushion, eventually somebody's going to punish you for that, and you're going to have to adjust one way or the other.
Yeah, it was just something that I've noticed, wondered about. But I mean, in terms of the defense overall, they've done a lot of bending, but they don't break a lot, and they've been the reason why they've been in a lot of these games. While even when the offense has struggled, they're not out of it because they've made plays. They'll sometimes let you move the ball, but you won't maybe get a touchdown, or it's very hard to get that. But also, I've also said that we've talked about time of possession and how that's very lopsided, and how that also could play into why also they're on the field a lot, is because they are bend not break. So teams are having to methodically move the ball, which means that's 8-9 minute drives. And so now it's like you're just hopeful the offense can have a long drive themselves, because if not, well, okay, now we got to go back out there and bend not break again for another 8-9 minutes, depending on obviously who they're playing. So that's just an interesting thing to kind of look at in that perspective. Are you excited for the debut of Captain America?
Oh man, if JD Bertrand had to get thrown into a game, I don't think this is the worst one to get thrown into. I'm not super worried about the Buccaneers offensive line right now. And I think because they really want the offense to go through Baker, Bertrand, when he has played, it's been in goal line situation for 4 snaps. All of his other 5 snaps have been in passing situations where he's been in coverage or he's been used as a blitzer. So they want him in situations where the ball is going to be going through the air. And I think this is a game where you're going to see the Buccaneers try to do more of that. I don't believe in their commitment to the run, but they will run the ball. They're going to, hand it off. And I think he'll be fine. Play strength is really the only thing that worries me about JD at this time. And that's pretty normal for, rookies coming out of college, getting that NFL weight on in year one, and then they're able to take the next step. We haven't seen, like I said, there's only been 9 plays on film, but his eyes look really good. What he was, touted on was his mental and his instincts, and you do see them on film. He is able to read and react quickly, doesn't really hesitate, not a lot of wasted movement or anything like that either. So I think this is a good one where it's like, okay, maybe this is earlier than we wanted, but There's much worse opponents. If this was like Pittsburgh or if this was the Eagles, I would be terrified.
Hey, I mean, he's a guy who he is the last. If there was a ranking system, he is the new member of the GSP State Patrol. All right, he is the newbie out of that patrol unit, but he is someone they have a lot of confidence in. And so that is very very important, I think, moving forward. And it'll be interesting also to see if Rashaan Evans is activated, because obviously if not, then you're going into that game with two linebackers. That's it. So I don't know if that could cause you to do maybe more one linebacker sets, maybe, because you're worried. I mean, that will be an interesting thing to see if they can get him up to speed quick enough in that regard. But I'll hit you with this last question, sir, and I'll let you go. What is overall your biggest key, offense, defense, coaching? What is the number one thing you definitely have to see from the Falcons if they're going to win against Tampa Bay? And if you have a prediction, also get that out there as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be the same thing that we started off with, and it's just executing, really getting out of your own way and making sure that if it doesn't work, it's because you just simply lost the matchup, not because you beat yourself or you got a penalty or you missed a read or missed a throw or dropped a pass, any of that. If this team can execute, and if they can hit these shots that we've kind of seen them miss on film, then I have no reason to believe that they can't beat Tampa Bay or that they won't beat Tampa Bay this Thursday night. I do expect them to win. I'm going to say that I think the offense does click a little bit more, even on the short week, and that we get a 27-20 win over the Bucs. It's going to be another close game, one score game. I don't think it's going to be for the same reasons it has been, though. I think Tampa Bay is just a solid team, and it's not going to be an easy game by any means.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're definitely, like I said, they've won the NFC South the last 3 years. They have established themselves as a team to be reckoned with, and I think the Falcons understand. And you can make an argument out of the 3 games that they're going to play. This is the toughest one. So they're going to have to come out, be on their P's and Q's, hopefully have more execution in the offense, even, change some different things up. And I'm excited to kind of see what that's going to look like against them as they try to win, get the early NFC South lead, and try to ride it home from here, I guess. This is where you say you get into the easier part of the schedule. But you got Seattle still on the horizon. They're good. I think Commanders are on the schedule. Am I wrong?
Commanders are on the schedule.
Yeah, that's tough. Vikings look like the best team in football all of a sudden. Sam Darnold. So they're gonna have to really win these games, man, and get ready for those down the line. But Tre'Shon, I appreciate you, man, coming on to the show, man. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. You can find me on Twitter at Tre'Shon. You can also find me writing at the SB Nation outlet, the Falcoholic, putting out content there. And those are all the places you can find me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And obviously, guys, y'all know, find me on Bryce_2K on Twitter. If you really enjoyed this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel for more Atlanta Falcons content. And maybe you'll see this man on here once again in the future, talking more Falcons, man. But I'm Bryce. That's Tre'Shon. We'll see you next time.